Age of the Prime's Onyx Prime was not really one of the original 13 on my radar until we actually saw it, especially considering my overall indifference to a lot of Beastformer designs. Megatronus and Liege Maximo were the highest on my radar just because they have had significant media appearances before, but Onyx being the third leader class Prime, I wasn't too interested. That was of course until its reveal, where I was instantly smitten with the look of the thing. So, now that I have it in hand, does it hold up? Well, let's take a look at him and find out. The sculpted detail and proportions on this figure are absolutely incredible. The base robot mode on this thing looks grandiose and majestic. It doesn't feel like there's a single part of him that doesn't have a lot of very intentional detail. The big hulking fawn-like legs with robotic sculpting and fur texture mixed throughout just looks so cool. The front skirt and the chest have this incredible detail to them. There's some very clear alt mode parts and some very clear details in here. Love the way that the front centaur legs fold around and make up the majority of the bulk in the chest. And the harsh taper of the waist makes it look so much more organic. The arms continue the grandiose aesthetic with large sweeping shoulder pads and spikes coming off the elbows. The wings, of course, cannot go unmentioned. There is so much great detail here. All the different spikes in them that stick out in different directions, the fur caps on top, the little talons pointing inwards. They're such a statement. And they frame the head so perfectly with the big bird crown and the chin strap teeth. There's just so much I enjoy about this sculpt. There's a lot more life and personality and history here than there have been in the other primes. I think out of all of the primes that have released so far, this is the best looking. I also really appreciate that he's like an inch taller than Megatronus at the head. This thing is huge. The only thing I was really concerned about the look of this guy with was the coloration, but in hand it looks great. I was expecting the dark blue and rich gold that we saw in Transformers 1 or the IDW comics, but honestly, this brown is a welcome change. It pulls from the design from the Covenant a lot more. There's all these various different gradients and shades of dark and light browns with various silvers and golds peeking out in between them. And as welcome as a dark purplish blue shockwave repaint of this guy would be, I'm happy with this one for now. But I really just can't get over how cool this thing looks. It's not often in this franchise that I come across a new design that is so far from the boxiness that I prefer that really sings to me, but this design really does. Now accessory wise, he does come with a couple of pieces. He has this tail piece which does look pretty nice, but it's not posable at all. You can take it off and unfurl it into this big bow, but it only really has a tab where it can plug in on the hand, and that isn't the most secure connection in the world. The inside isn't sculpted at all and it looks kind of bad. And when you bring in this spear piece to use as an arrow, it's not perfect. It's just kind of limited in the ways that you can hold it. That spear is much better individually. It has a lot of really cool detail. He can single or double hand it if you want to. It can plug on the back, can fold in half so you can store it in other ways. It's a really good accessory. And while the bow is a neat idea, I just think it needed another round or two in the execution. Especially considering that his posing, at least in this mode, is kind of limited. The head is on a pretty good ball jump, which is kind of limited when looking to the side, but that's about it. You can move the shoulder pads out of the way to get some decent outward movement, and they can go all the way around. The wings can move out of the way to accommodate it or splay a little bit upwards. There's bicep swivels, kind of restricted feeling elbows. Although they are standard in terms of motion, the amount of armor around them just kind of gets in the way. There's wrist swivels, opening hands, there's a waist swivel, although it is under both back and front monoskirts, which is annoying. The hips move out really far and forward and back pretty standardly. There's thigh swivels, and then the lower legs are kind of weird. The upper joint at the knee can bend backwards a little bit and the lower joint can go forwards. And both of them have a couple of locking points in there for the various different modes. And finally, you have some ankle pivots. The posing in the base robot mode really isn't that bad, but it's nothing overly special. I like that you have a couple of different options with the wings, and the legs aren't that bad, you just have to get used to the way that the knees work. But the gigantic shoulder pauldrons kind of clashing with the collar pieces just get in the way, and it makes the upper body kind of hard to work with, especially when using the bow. And unfortunately, out of the box, the feel of this thing didn't exactly complement the posing either. The up and down movement of the wings and the outward movement of the hips were really loose. Not horrendously so, but it was kind of hard to get him into certain poses with them. Fortunately, each and every one of those joints was on a screw and it only took 1 or 2 turns for it to be sufficiently tight, but it's still annoying that it wasn't like that out of the box. Yeah, while the overall design of this guy and the look is absolutely fantastic, the overall playability of the base robot mode does leave a little bit to be desired, but you do have plenty of other modes to mess with. The transformation into the Centaur mode is pretty simple all in all. It is a little bit tight in terms of clearance to get the horse legs out from behind the shoulders, but once you're there, it's just a case of shifting a few things around and splaying the wings. Although it can be a little bit of a pain to get all the legs lined up. And the Centaur mode is such a cool concept and it's executed here pretty well. The head is much more animalistic with the face compressed away, and the front legs create such an expressive look, and considering they are the only joints that really change it all, with a new unrestricted forward, back and out, a thigh swivel, similar knees to the back legs except a little more unrestricted, and nothing at the hooves, it really adds to the dynamicism of the posing here. Oh yeah, there is one other change. Now that the front legs are moved out of the way, you get access to some pretty hefty butterfly joints. This really helps the bow poses be a lot more convincing, and I really appreciate it, but I do think it kind of damages the look when he's just standing there, since there's these big brackets that the arms are on. But even though they do distract a little bit and the arms might look a touch too big in this mode, I still really like the look, and it is much more playable. Plus, it's a centaur. That's cool as fuck. Unfortunately, I don't think the first of the beast modes are quite as good, especially since the transformation into it is basically just turning it halfway back into the robot mode and flipping out the ultimate head. This just doesn't feel like a satisfying enough transformation, and I wish there was a little more going on than a parts-forming tail. You are left with a kinda cool, kinda weird-looking horse dragon thing, and there are some things I like about this, especially the head sculpt. That thing is awesome, but there are various problems here. Chief among them, the limbs are all packed into such a tight space that you can't really use any of them. The back legs are the only ones that feel like they have quite enough clearance to move properly, and they provide most of the support to this structure, so it feels a bit more limited. Although I do like that you still have access to the centaur transformation joint, so you can get some poses like this. However, for playability, I don't like this quite as much as the second beast mode, which is kind of funny considering this is literally the robot mode on all fours with the new head. There's barely any transformation here at all. What that does mean is you get access to all the posing from the new head, like the very unrestricted ball joint and the opening mouth, with the addition of the standard limb posing for the robot mode, and a very bear-like stature. This just has a lot more presence and personality to me than the other beast mode did, I think because you can't see a lot of the inner workings on the side. Helps me appreciate things like the weapon storage on the rear, but I can't reiterate enough that this is literally just the robot mode with a different head. But other than the slightly unimaginative transformation, I think just about everything this guy does is up to par. There's 4 modes, each with a completely unique vibe and some kind of draw that makes them interesting. I don't think the playability of this thing is matched by any of the other primes except Megatronus, and the shelf presence is just not even close. This has got to be one of my favorite leader class figures I've gotten in a long time, and I would recommend it to virtually any collector. And if you're just as much a fan of this thing as I am, then please leave a like, or if you're not, leave a comment, tell me why. I'd love to hear what you guys think. And be sure to subscribe for the next one. At the time of recording, I'm away at TF Nation in a few days, so I don't exactly know what I'm going to be bringing back with me, but whatever it is, it'll probably be the next review. So stay tuned for that, or if you want to catch it early, my Patreon is always an option, where you get early access, photo galleries, your name in the credits, the whole works. Right now though, I need to book a haircut. I need to make sure I'm looking good. Anyway, ciao.